I think I know how to kill the Shadow Man. Ever since I was a kid, my only friend has been the Shadow Man. No one else can see him but me, no one else can hear him but me, but I assure you he's here. Even as I'm writing this, he looms over my shoulder, reading every word, telling me it's all pointless, and that I should just give up. He's made of shadows, dark black shadows, looking more like a hole in the universe than a creature consisting of anything. His entire body is void of details, comparable to a child's stick figure drawing. He has no fingers, he has no toes, and he wears no clothes. But despite all that he lacks, he seems to be more proficient than anyone else. He has no eyes, but he can see more than most. He has no ears, but he hears everything. The only part of his body that isn't entirely made of shade is his mouth, which he uses more than anything else. His mouth is rotten, dirty, and crooked, like the words he proclaims at every moment. His teeth are all shades of yellow and white, at all kinds of different incorrect angles. However, it remains the only part of him that isn't touched by shadow. The first time I met him, I was 10, and my parents had just pulled me from public school to try homeschooling. At first, I was excited, but as the realization set in that I would be horrifically alone, I began to grow unsure. That was when the Shadow Man appeared. He would only come around when I was alone in my room, never when someone else was there, and only when I began to miss my friends from my old school. He pretended to comfort me. His voice was gentle, but his words stung. He told me he only wanted the best for me, but I needed to accept the reality of my suffering. He told me he wanted everything to get better, but for that to happen, I needed to be ready for how bad things were going to get. He told me I'd never get to have a childhood like the other kids, that I'd never ask someone to the dance, or sit in the stands of a football game. He told me I'd never have any friends again, and that everyone had already forgotten about me. But worst of all, he told me no one would ever love me. He told me I didn't deserve it, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I'd cry for hours, my stomach would not, and my mind would race with the worst of thoughts. He told me I wasn't worthy, and I believed him. I would stress and worry for hours on end. My anxiety consumed me and refused to let me go. I needed help. I knew I needed to tell someone, but the Shadow Man would grow angry, swearing that anyone I confessed to would hate me forever, because the Shadow Man only visits the worst people possible. So, I remained silent, smiling on the outside, too scared to let the facade drop, too afraid that someone would know that the Shadow Man visits me when no one else is around. As I grew to be more accustomed to the Shadow Man, he became more comfortable being around me. At first, he'd hide until no one else was around, but then he started being there all the time, in the back of my mind, or just within his voice's reach, assuring me at all times that I was alone. Even when I was in a room full of people, he was always around to tell me exactly who I was, someone who doesn't deserve to be loved. I discovered soon after that no one else could see the Shadow Man but me, when he stopped hiding behind walls and in my thoughts, and instead opted to stand beside me. He told me only the worst kind of people could see the Shadow Man. That's how he could tell I was as awful as they came. After that discovery, I did everything in my power to hide that I knew the Shadow Man. The Shadow Man's influence quickly spread beyond when I was alone. Now that he followed me everywhere, he began to tell me what people really meant when they spoke to me. "I love you," my mother would say. "She only says that because she feels like she has to," he'd retort. "I miss you," my friends would say. "They're happier now that you're gone," he'd whisper. I tried branching out, I tried meeting new people, from youth to family friends. I felt like a sore thumb, the odd one out, all because of the Shadow Man's taunting. He didn't even pretend to have my best interests in mind anymore. He didn't lie and tell me he wanted to fix things, because deep down, we both knew I couldn't escape him. I was nothing without him, and no one could know. "You don't belong here," he'd tell me as I tried to make friends. They want you to leave. They don't want you to come back. I stopped going to things like that after a while. It felt like it made it worse, or at least the shadow man tried to make it that way. He told me I was better off alone. He told me I was better off keeping the burden that was my life to myself, and to keep everyone else out. I did as he said. He was my only friend and the only friend I feared I'd ever know, so I tried going out less. I tried talking to my family less, tried saving everyone else from me. The shadow man no longer kept his distance. One day he climbed onto my back, and he never left. He wrapped his arms around my head, covering my eyes and ears. But somehow, I could still see, despite the blockage, but only what he wanted me to. The world looked a lot bleaker through the shadow man's guard. Everything seemed dim and gray. I couldn't see people's faces. They were the only thing completely blacked out. But I could still see my family and the world around me, despite the new color grading. His arms covered my ears, but I could hear everything almost perfectly, except when others spoke. Any conversation with my mother, father, or siblings would be entirely unintelligible, and the shadow man would instead tell me what they said. He would tell me how my mother said she hates me, my father wishes I would change how I act, and how my sisters were fed up with my living there. Life became almost completely intolerable. I would wake up, do school, the shadow man would tell me every way I was broken, and I would go to sleep. Life remained that way for years until I turned 16. Through the interpretations of the shadow man, my parents informed me that they didn't like having me around the house as much and wanted me to start making money so I could move out. So, they had me apply to hundreds of different jobs until I finally got hired. I took an immediate liking to the job. It was an easy locker room maintenance position, but I finally felt like I'd found a place where I fit in. Despite the shadow man's best efforts, I found friendship amongst my coworkers and began filling my free time with as much work as I could, finally escaping the constant feeling of loneliness. The shadow man soon climbed off my back, and for the first time in years, I began to see clearly again, and one of the first things that filled my sight was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I fell in love, and the shadow man fled from her in disgust, disappearing from my life entirely when I finally found someone I could confess my worries to, speak what I had thought to be the unspeakable to, and, most importantly, someone who I knew loved me. Life was good for some time. I had even grown to forget about the shadow man. I had new friends, reconnected with old ones, picked up hobbies, and spent every waking moment with the love of my life. Then it all fell apart. It began when my girlfriend and I graduated from high school, and she moved off to college 6 hours away. She promised me we would make work, and I believed we could, but that didn't stop the constant worry. Then the day came, we said our goodbyes, planned the next time we'd meet up, and then she left. It hit me almost instantly, the gaping hole in my chest, the better half of me gone, and took everything good about me with her. That was when the shadow man returned. Just like before, he first only appeared when I was alone, to confirm my worst fears, that my girlfriend was fleeing from me, trying to leave me, cheating on me, everything I couldn't confirm in her absence, everything I couldn't talk to her about in her classes. The shadow man told me that if I ever told her of my fears, she'd think I didn't trust her, that I was insecure, and didn't love her enough. So, I kept it to myself and tried to avoid talking to her about how I was doing. The thoughts plagued my mind so much that it began to affect my work ethic. I began to slow down, slack off, and then the next thing that was taken from me was my job. Then the shadow man progressed to being with me at every moment of the day. With the sudden increase in free time, we talked a lot. In a matter of weeks, he broke down everything my girlfriend had built in years. He convinced me I was unloved, unworthy, and undeserving. He convinced me my friends hung out with me out of pity, and she only loved me because it was convenient. The shadow man once again climbed to my shoulders when I began ignoring her texts, snoozing calls, and cutting ties with my friends. He told me it was for the best. Once again, I spent most of my time at home, most of my time alone with the Shadow Man, unable to hear what my family wished to tell me, and unable to understand what my girlfriend had tried to do to console me. She was the next to go. After months of horrible communication and blatant mistreatment, she finally decided it was best that we part ways. The Shadow Man never weighed on my shoulders before, but after that, he grew to be almost unbearable. He was too heavy to carry around, so I stuck to my bed, always tired from holding him up, always out of breath from his crushing grasp. Even then, he never relents, whispering in my ears every second. His words are growing harsher, closer to threats than insights. He tells me I don't deserve to be alive, that my life is a burden to others, and the kindest thing I can do is free them from it. Even as I'm typing this now, his whispers grow to yells, and I can't take it anymore. I don't have anything left in me, and I don't have anyone left to help me. To anyone out there who has seen the Shadow Man, he lies. Everything he says is a lie. Don't give in to his torments before it's too late. He doesn't just attack those who are broken or who are horrible people. He'll attack anyone and everyone he can. Don't be ashamed, you're not alone. He wants you to feel that way, but I assure you, you're not. Talk to someone, anyone, and he'll flee like the coward he really is. I think I know how to kill the Shadow Man, but I'm scared of what's on the other side.